Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Manny, and today I'm going to be showing you the top 10 formulas, probably the only 10 formulas that you'll ever need as a business analyst. Before I begin, make sure to subscribe. There's a brand new channel. I'm going to be putting a lot of data stuff in it, so go ahead, click the red button, and make me happy. So I'm going to jump right into it. Let me go ahead and switch my screen. So the first formula is a combination of a few, right? It's sum, count, and average, and those are kind of like your bread and butter in a sense, right? You always need to add, you always need to count things, you always need to find the average. I would also put the minus sign there as well. You definitely need to subtract. So let's get right to it. How do you add, let's say, an entire column? Let's just say if you want to add column E, right? Well, simple. All you have to do is type in equal sign sum. And here's a quick tip about formulas, that if you don't know what the formula requires, right, and you open the parentheses, here it's going to tell you, okay, so you want to sum. Right here below is going to say, okay, give me number one, right? And then give me number two, give me number three. Here's the cool thing about sum, though. You don't have to, theoretically, the way that it's structured, it's saying, okay, you have to add this one, right? Then press comma, this one, then press comma, this one, and then press comma, this one, then press and close parentheses, right? That's one way of doing it. You can select each individual field, but as you can see, there's a lot of fields. So we may not want to go that route because it's not the most effective, right? So the better option is selecting the entire column. So there's a few ways of doing this. You can either click up here, right? And then press enter, and boom, you got the full sum of the entire column, right? Other ways of doing it, you can start from here if you want to be super precise. Click and drag all the way down, right? And then press enter, and boom, you have the 2,121 sum. Another way of doing it, which is my preferred method, click on the cell on the top, press Shift Control downwards, enter, boom. And this one is probably the best one when you have a lot of data, like hundreds of thousands of rows, because you will immediately go and do the selection. So Shift Control, press the down arrow. That also works, on the side as well. Like if you go Shift Control to the right, it'll go to the last value. Shift Control down, Shift Control right, will select the full data. So side tip, not part of the formula stuff, but going back to sum, that's how it works. Now, if we want to, let's say, count instead of summing, then you just switch the formula to count, right? Boom. Well, what is this exactly doing? This is basically treating each row as one, right? You're counting how many rows you have in that selected data. So it's not adding the values, it's counting the values. You may have a lot of groceries in each bag, but you only have one bag, right? So that's the difference between sum and count. And then the average, if you want to find the average of the entire table, switch this to average, enter, boom, 49.3256, right? So super useful formulas to be able to quickly do addition, average, and count. So second formula, a bit more involved. It's the if, technically an if-then statement, but they call it an if statement in Excel. An if statement is, think about it as, if something happens, then do this, right? So what we can do is, let's say, for instance, if we want to type if, and you want to say, okay, so if cell E2 is greater than 90, then we're going to put true, else we're going to put false. So you can see cell E2 here, so let's type that in. So if E2 is greater than 90, comma, then we're gonna, and we have to open a quotation when we're typing a string or a text value, then true, else we want to type in false, right? And then we close it. So cool thing about a formula, let's say if we change this value to an 85, all of a sudden this now becomes false, because remember the condition is if the value is greater than 90, it's true. If it's not, it's false, right? We can also do something cooler, and this kind of transitions into the next formula, which is the AND statement. We can have two conditions at play. So now we're going to edit the if statement, and we're going to add AND here. So the reason you want to add AND inside of the if statement is because we're going to give it two conditions, right? And the two conditions have to be true in order for the rest of the if statement to be true. So let me show you how that works. So let's say now we're going to take E2, 85, and E3, which is 50, right? So if E2 is greater than 80, right, comma, and now we're adding the second condition. If E3 is greater than 60, oh, let's make it true, it's greater than 40, then what you want to do is close the AND statement, comma, open the string to put the value true, and the false value is just false. We're just keeping it simple today. Boom. So it's saying, okay, so if this condition is greater than, or if this cell is greater than 80, and if E3 is greater than 40, then it's true. So good thing about this formula is that whenever that statement becomes one of these cells doesn't meet the parameter, this switches to false. There's a different formula with the similar variation, but it's called the OR statement. And OR means you have to meet at least one of the conditions for the entire statement to be true. So either this or this, right? So in this case, notice how now my formula is true, even though my second E3 is actually not greater than 40. That's because the first statement, E2, is greater than 80. So that's how the OR formula works. And that's how if, and, an OR can be used. Super useful to find so many different values and things like that, and really formulate insights based on conditions, right? And this is how the kind of like the start of condition statements. The next one that we have is VLOOKUP. I love VLOOKUP, and it's probably one of the most useful formulas right after all the ones I mentioned, but I would argue most people will put it at the top of their list. I'm putting it 3 or 4 right now. But let's just say, so I have this sheet called, it's not really called anything, but we're gonna make this up as we go. So I'm gonna create a sheet that's gonna be only for the regions. And I'm gonna say, okay, so each region has a specific code. And we're gonna call this region code, right? Just to be fancy. Okay, we'll format it. Let's make this just so that it looks nice, right? Okay, great. So now we have east equals 101, central equals 202, west equals 303. So this is how a VLOOKUP works. Basically, you type in, let's say if I want to put the region code here, right? I want to say, okay, I want to add the region code here. Here you can see the regions. I want to put the code that I have on sheet 2 based on that region. Simple. You just type in equals VLOOKUP, right? What is the value that you're looking for? That's what's called lookup value. Well, I'm looking for this cell, right? Comma. Where do you want to look for that value? I want to look at it from these two columns. And the reason why you're selecting the second column is because you also need to let it know where that value that you want is. So yes, although east is located in column A, really the value that you're interested in the formula returning is in column B, right? So that's why it's important that you select all the columns that are pertinent to that selection. Then you press comma, and now you're going to type in 2. Why 2? Well, simple. It is the second column in that selection that you did that you want to return. So the formula is going to say, okay, you want me to look at east. I found east. What column do you want, east or do you want 101, right? Say, well, I gave you east, so I don't want east. I want 101, which is the second column, right? So that's why you need to type in 2 there, comma, false, because you want exact match. The last part allows you to do approximate match. I never used it. I think it's ridiculous to try to have approximations for formulas. But yeah, that's how you do an exact match. Then you press enter, and boom, the code is there. Here's the magic about formulas, right? Because of the way that I constructed it, right? I'd selected the value, I selected the range. all I have to do now is, you see this little box right here? Double click on that and the formula automatically spreads all the way down. So super useful. One of my biggest use cases, or one of my biggest formulas that I've used in the real world, right? So the next one that we have is concatenate. Oh, concatenate is great. So let's say if you have a cells that are the fox ran forever, right? And you're like, oh man, I wish I can just combine all these and make them into a sentence without having to kind of like copy and paste and things like that. Well, that's simple. Just type in a concatenate. So if you type in concatenate, right? Concatenate is very specific. You have to tell it not only what you're joining, but also is there a space that you want in between, the words in this case. So when you open that parentheses, it's going to say, what's your text one? Simple. Click on it, comma. Then you're going to tell the system or the formula, hey, I want a space between this word that I'm telling you and the next one. So this is how you build a space. You open a quotation, space, and then close that quotation. So you're bringing that string of the space into the formula. Then press comma. Then you want to click on Fox. Then we're going to press comma. Then add the empty string again. Press comma. Then you're going to click on ran. Press comma. And then add the empty string again. Press comma. And then click on forever. You don't have to add any space beyond that unless you want to. Then click on the parentheses and close it. And boom, there's your sentence. Easy, right? And the great thing about this is if you have, multiple, right? The fox, we'll call this the wolf, the eagle, the rat, the wolf flew. Why not? If eagle is for rat, I don't know, food, I guess, right? Forever, young, or I don't know, cruised, right? Etc. We'll put blah and blah. The great thing is about this formula, it also works just like the one that we showed for VLOOKUP, that you can just drag it down and now you have all of the other sentences completed. So it definitely speeds up your time. Super useful formula. Concatenate, very good for strings, for string manipulation. Also, I would say, there are, and I can teach these two as well. There may not be the main ones that you probably would use, but there is such a thing as left, right, and mid. I'll just show left for now. Left means that, okay, I have this string of information and I just want to copy the first like 3 letters, right? So you can do something like this, equals left, comma, select the string, and then you're going to say, okay, so I want you to copy the first 3 letters. So comma, 3, enter, and there you go. Now you have the first 3 letters. So if I drag this down, boom, you'll have the first 3 characters basically. So that's one way to deconstruct the string. All right, so the next, let me go ahead and delete all of this. The next one that we have are max and min. And as the word states, if you want to find the maximum value, so if you have values from 0 to 100 and you want to know that 100 is the maximum value, simple. You just type in equals max, open parentheses, select the column that you want those values from, close it, boom, there is your max. Same thing for min, super easy. Min, select that column while the parentheses open, close it, there you go. The minimum value here is 1.29. Easy, right? These formulas, once you get used to them, and I guarantee you, if you're aiming to do business analytics, these are bread and butter, right? The next one that I have, it's not really a formula, but I like to think that it is called conditional formatting. So conditional formatting is a way to add colors based on conditions, right? So let's say if you want to say all of the regions that are east, you want them to be blue. And then all the regions that are central, you want them to be yellow, and the west want them to be red, right? Well, that's very simple. All you have to do is select the data, and remember, Shift Control down arrow. Then conditional formatting, and it's right here on the home tab in the ribbon, conditional formatting. And then you want to say highlight cell rules that equal to. All right, so what does it need to equal? Well, let's put east, and remember we want to select blue. And then when you click OK, look, now all of your easts are blue. Super simple. So now you want to repeat the process, highlight cells that are equal, and we set central, right? And you just have to type in central. This time we want it to be yellow. Luckily, there's a yellow in there already. Click OK. Let's say we want west to be red. Highlight equals, type in west, and red, boom. And there you have it. Now you have east. And then the great thing about conditional formatting is that it's active, right? So if I switch this, oh, I actually accidentally put set of east, that particular entry should have been central. Press enter, it changes the color like magic. All right, and then the last formula that I want to show is index and match. And the great thing about index and match is that it allows you to overcome some of the limitations with VLOOKUP. For instance, VLOOKUP requires the value that you're looking for to always be on the left side of the formula. So you can't have like -1 type of thing. So you have to, that's kind of like a big limitation with that. But with index and match, you can overcome that. And I'm going to show you how index and match works right now. So if you type equals index, open parentheses, right? Now what you want to specify to the formula, let's just say, and let's kind of regroup what the purpose of the initial exercise was. We're going to, based on the region, we want to find the region code, right? So we're going to send the formula the region, we're going to get back the region code. In this case, however, you want to specify the column that you want back, right? So when you type in index, you're going to open parentheses, go back to sheet 2 and select that column that has the value that you want, right? Don't worry about the the value that you're sending yet. You just want to make sure that in the first part of that formula, you're selecting the column that you want back. Now you press comma, right? And then you're going to type in the word match, because we're going to, based on a match, we're going to match the value, and it's going to give us the row number, which in turn is going to give us the index, which is the value that we want, right? So when you type in match, open parentheses, then it's going to say, well, what value do you want to send to the formula? So now you go back here and you select, okay, I want to send central, comma. It's going to say, well, where do you want me to look that value at? Then you're going to go back to sheet 2, select column A, right? So we selected the field that we're going to send it. We selected the column that we're going to send it to. And the beginning part of that formula, the index part, is that region code that we want back, right? So when you press comma, the last thing that you want to specify is that it's an exact match. Always do exact match. It's just easier. I mean, you could do less than, greater than. Those are kind of some of the pluses of match. But for this case, you want to set 0, which, and right here it says less than, exact match, or greater than. So 0 is the one that equals exact match. So now when you close parentheses, boom, there you go. And this also works like any other formula, right? You drag it, you can verify this is the VLOOKUP result, this is the index match result. Super useful formula. Works very similar to VLOOKUP, but you just have to understand it. And once you kind of run with it a few times, it's actually much more freeing than VLOOKUP, just because you don't have those limitations as VLOOKUP. So that's pretty much it in terms of the top 10 formulas that I feel are the most useful, and definitely probably the only ones that you'll ever need, especially as an entry-level business analyst. If you're just running reports, those are probably the most useful formulas that you will need in Excel. So that cuts it for today. I really appreciate you taking the time in watching this video. Please go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to be uploading a ton of data content, a lot of useful, practical content that you'll be able to use on your day-to-day data endeavors. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day. Peace.